Hi everyone, my name is Becky Rizzoli. I am on the Excel staff at Bridgewater State University, and this is a workshop about social media and mental health and how it affects neurodivergent college students. As we all know, social media is very popular for many reasons. It allows you to keep in touch with family and friends. You can share stories, videos, photos, etc. with your friends and followers. You can follow your favorite celebrities, see what they're up to. You follow accounts and groups based on your interests. It's easy to use. And it's also great for neurodivergent people who struggle with nonverbal communication because communication on the internet is all verbal. I am neurodivergent myself. And like many neurodivergent people, I was not exactly the most popular person in my school. In fact, I was often an outcast or a misfit because of my inability to understand nonverbal communication. However, when I went online, I was often highly respected and admired. I belonged to a number of online groups and communities, and I was often one of the most admired and respected members of these communities because of my strong verbal skills, and it allowed me to communicate in a way that I couldn't in real life. However, social media is meant to connect us to others, but often it just disconnects us from ourselves. What does it mean to be disconnected from yourself? It means you feel numb, sad, tense, unmotivated, irritable, overwhelmed, all of which can lead or exacerbate mental health problems such as anxiety and depression. Now, psychiatrists have found that the more time you spend on social media, the more depressed and anxious you are. And adolescents and adults are especially at high risk for mental health issues from using social media, including depression, anxiety, and eating disorders. And many neurodivergent people are already at high risk for anxiety and depression. So the more time you spend on social media is just going to make it worse. There are a number of ways that social media can be harmful. It's highly addictive. It can cause you to waste time. People only tend to share the best parts of our lives, which can give you a flawed view of what their lives are really like. You can find yourself having nasty arguments with people who disagree with you, which can increase frustration and anxiety. And sometimes people will like deliberately troll you because they want to get a reaction out of you. Social media also lacks emotional connection that we get from being physically present with others. It allows cyberbullying and it allows harmful misinformation to spread. It's highly addictive. You'll see I have a picture of pills here because social media can be just as addictive as drugs. In fact, social media is designed to be highly addictive so that you'll keep scrolling, see the ads, buy the products, and make them money. And they have algorithms designed to show ads based on your interests. And there is numerous evidence that teens' use of social media is linked to depression, suicide, self-harm, and eating disorders. People can waste too much time on social media. Now, you might say, if I'm enjoying it, then it's not a waste of time. But just think, no one will ever say at the end of their life, I wish I had spent more time on social media. People will say things like, I wish I'd spent more time with family or with friends. I spent more time traveling, reading, etc. And every minute that you spent on social media is a minute that you could have spent doing one of those other things that are a more productive use of your time. Now, not all social media is necessarily a waste of time, but if you find that it's making you more anxious or depressed or angry more than it's bringing you pleasure, it is time to cut down. And A lot of people, especially people with neurological conditions as ADHD, can lose track of time on social media. And your social media feed has no end. Unlike email, where you read all of your new messages in your inbox, and then once you read them, you're done, social media is made to go on infinitely. If you've read everything that your friends posted since you've been on last, you can keep scrolling, and there's ads and suggestions for accounts to follow, going on and on endlessly, and that is dangerous. Using social media can make you feel like everyone else is happier than you, even when that's not the case. That's because people tend to only share the best parts of their lives online, like happy photos, good news, etc. And we wind up comparing other people's best lives to our worst life, or the worst parts of our life. And yes, this did occur somewhat before social media. It happened back when I was in college in the late 1990s. I remember being surprised to learn that people who I thought were happier or cooler or more popular than me had gone through some difficult times as well. But even then, like I still understood that they, like everyone, had bad days at times. And this was before social media, so I could only see them in real life, and I could hear them complaining about having bad days or not feeling well. And today, as social media has been replacing real life interactions, it's made it much worse because social media allows us to keep in touch with people who are not physically present in our lives. The only thing we know about them is what they choose to post online, and that's just a tiny portion of their life. And as you're scrolling down and you see all of your friends having seemingly happy lives, you can't help but compare them to the more stressful or difficult parts of your own lives, and you feel like they're all happy and you're depressed, and that's not always the case. Social media also allows cyberbullying. Now, bullying, of course, happened before social media or even the internet itself existed. I went to middle school in the early 90s, and I was bullied a lot then. But when I came home from school, I was free from the bullies for the rest of the day. And now social media means it's 24/7. You get no respite from it. Um, when I got to high school, I wasn't bullied as much because my high school had an excellent principal who really cared about us students and didn't tolerate bullies. And he made sure that all the bullies faced consequences. And as a result, there was not a lot of bullying in high school. Today, however, even the best principal can only do so much when it comes to bullying that happens online. Like some schools have a policy where students who bully others online can't participate in extracurricular activities or sports. How can you really enforce that, though? Sure, you can take a screenshot and show it to the principal, but then you're going to risk revenge from the bullies for tattling on them. Also, not to mention, principals can't do anything about cyberbullies who don't go to your school or who don't go there anymore or who've graduated. Another way social media Another way social media can be harmful is the lack of emotional connection. And we get emotional connection from being physically present with others. You remember the pandemic when we all had all our classes over Zoom? Now, I imagine that everyone watching this really did not like having classes over Zoom and preferred being in person. And that is because we're social creatures. And even though smartphones and social media and the internet allow us to connect with people when they aren't near, it's really no substitute for real life interactions. Like we pick up on the energy of others and from being physically present in a way that we don't over the internet. So even though we can stay in touch with people over social media, we can still be lonely because reading someone's Facebook post or looking at their Instagram photos doesn't really add fulfillment to our lives the way spending time with them in person adds fulfillment. And another danger of social media is that it allows the spread of misinformation, often harmful misinformation. Do you know what a conspiracy theory is? It is the belief that we are being lied to by either the government or other people or groups of people that are supposed to be trustworthy. Like some examples of conspiracy theories are a celebrity who was reported to have died several years ago is actually alive and being held hostage by terrorists. The moon landing in 1969 was fake. That's another popular conspiracy theory. In the 1990s, there was a conspiracy theory that then President Bill Clinton was cheating on his wife Hillary Clinton with an intern who was young enough to be his daughter. Now, that one actually turned out to be true. However, most conspiracy theories are just nonsense that some delusional person came up with maybe when they were high on drugs. Now, as you can tell by my examples of the moon landing and Bill Clinton's intern, conspiracy theories have been around for decades before the internet. But social media makes it much, much easier to spread the misinformation. See, before the internet, all news and public information came from TV, radio, newspapers, etc., and they had standards. Everything had to be fact-checked and reviewed before it was made available to the public. And this means the people who believed in conspiracy theories were limited in how they could spread their information. Sometimes they would make flyers and pamphlets and hand them out at a bus station. But you could tell by looking at these pamphlets that they were not from a credible news source. And that's because at that point in time, most people did not have access to the technology to make official-looking documents. A lot of people didn't have their own computers, so their flyers and pamphlets were handwritten, so you knew that it was not from an official news source. And as for the people who did have computers, well, this is what computer print looked like before the 1990s. For those of you who have trouble reading this, it is very, very different from the standard font used by print media. And so if people were handed a flyer with this type of font back then, they knew instantly that it was not a legitimate news source. In fact, when I showed this to Carolyn, she said, "Wow, that was standard font at the time?" And I said, "No, actually, it was the only font on our computers." In fact, when I was a teenager back in 1995, I remember my parents, my sister, and I were all sitting in front of our brand new home Windows computer for the first time. And we saw where it said select a font. And all four of us had the same reaction. What's a font? See, none of us knew the word because we never had any reason to use it up until then. So unless like you worked for like a publishing house or something like that, you wouldn't have used the word font, because up until this point, computers only had one font and it looked like this. And since the mid-90s was also the time that the internet first became public, this font that you see here is generally associated with the pre-internet era. Now, like I was saying before, news media had standards in the days before the internet, and they still have the same standards today. However, due to the internet and especially social media platforms, the news media is no longer the only source of information available to the public. And also, you have to often pay for credible news sources, but social media is free. And false information can be spread faster than ever by cults or QAnon, anti-vaxxers, hate groups, and others that the news media refuse to give a platform to. And there are some people become so brainwashed that when you try to show them articles from legitimate news organizations or fact checkers, they will claim that the news media is also in on the lies. For instance, if someone is convinced that the moon landing was fake, if you show them any news article or science article saying that the moon landing is real, they say that that article is also lying to you. Now, we know that that's not true. We know that the media does not lie to us. The media does not hide conspiracies from us. And we know that's the case because when a conspiracy theory turns out to be true, like in the case of Bill Clinton sleeping with his intern, it's always the media who reveals it. Now, some of you might say, well, yeah, but I know the difference between real news and fake news. I know which sources to trust and which aren't. However, the problem is that spreading fake news has consequences that affect all of us, not just those who believe in conspiracy theories. For instance, there are now hundreds of thousands of people dead of COVID because social media allowed misinformation about the virus to travel even faster than the virus itself. So those are all reasons why you might want to cut down on social media. Do you have to give up social media completely? Not necessarily. If you find that you're not having a problem with it, you find that you're not wasting too much time and it's not affecting your mental health, then keep using it. But even if you find that social media is a problem for you, you still don't need to give it up completely. You could take a break from it. Like you could say, I'm not going to go on social media at all for the next 2 weeks or whatever. You could set a timer and then get off social media when the timer goes off. In fact, some social media sites such as Facebook and Instagram actually have a setting where it can notify you once you've been on longer than 10 minutes. You can also have parental controls. And I know you're thinking, yes, I'm an adult. I don't need my parents to control what I'm seeing online. But if you find that it's got to the point that it's become addictive and it's negatively interfering with your mental health, you could have your parents set controls over what you can go to, or you can set them yourself. And also, you could delete your account from some platforms and not others. Like, for instance, I deleted my Twitter account a long time ago, and then I deleted my Facebook account several years ago as well. However, I kept my Instagram account just in case I ever needed to contact someone and I didn't have their personal email or phone number. It's the only way I could get in touch with them was through Instagram. Another thing you could do was to delete the app from your phone. So that way you can only use the site when you're sitting down at your computer. Of course, this still doesn't prevent you from logging in manually via Safari or whatever your web browser is on your phone. Like, I kept doing the same thing with Instagram, and I kept going on using Safari and kept going down the rabbit hole and wasting more time on it. So what I finally did was I deleted Safari from my phone, and then my phone automatically set Microsoft Edge as the default browser. So then when I opened the browser and I saw Edge rather than Safari, it was a very clear sign to me that I should not be logging into Instagram. And since then, I've gone on Instagram maybe once or twice a month just to check for new messages. I also went on today because it's National Tabby Cat Day. It's like a post picture of my cat. And then I found after I was on it, I was starting to scroll down and look at different things. And then I stopped myself. I was like, oh, going down the rabbit hole, time to stop. So if you tried all of these strategies and you find that none of them work and you're still addicted and it's still making you mentally unwell, then it may be time to permanently delete your accounts. Now, you may wonder if you can handle life without social media. In 2024, it might seem like life without social media is impossible, and you hesitate to quit or even reduce time spent on social media for fear that you will lose touch with your friends and your former classmates who you don't see often in real life. And I initially was hesitant to leave Facebook for the same reasons. I was 30 when social media first became a thing, when I first got on it. So it had been a little bit over a decade since I graduated high school and a little under a decade since I graduated college. And during that decade, I kept in touch with a few close friends, but I'd lost touch with most of my other classmates. So it was fun and exciting to reconnect with them after all these years. Every day going on, seeing what they were up to was always fun. It was like a virtual reunion every day. But after I had been on social media for about a decade and a half, I concluded that Facebook was doing me much more harm than good for all the reasons I mentioned before. But still, I didn't want to quit entirely because I knew that I would lose touch with all these people again. And then I suddenly realized that for that decade between graduation and when I first got on social media, I actually managed just fine without keeping in touch with most of my classmates who weren't my closest friends. And I will continue to manage just fine going forward. And I realized that people who are my true friends, I would stay in touch with them even without social media. And if quitting social media meant that I lost touch with some people, then that meant that they were never really my true friends, but just acquaintances, which meant that I'd managed perfectly fine without them. And I have. And I've also managed just fine keeping in touch with my true friends, even without social media, because we all have each other's phone numbers, emails, etc. And now you might be thinking, well, gee, Mrs. Rizzoli, of course you managed just fine without social media all those years, because nobody had social media then, and it's harder for us Generation Z folks because we've never known a world without social media. And I understand that it's going to be much harder for you to quit or even reduce your time on social media than it was for me, because you've never known a world where social media didn't exist. You knew what social media was even before you were old enough to use it. You may have counted down the days till your 13th birthday so you could have your own social media account. However, everyone who I've talked to who's old enough to remember life before social media, everyone unanimously agrees that the world was a better place before it. And everyone unanimously agrees that they are grateful that social media wasn't a thing during our own adolescent years. Now, I mean, it is true that every generation, once they hit middle age, starts becoming nostalgic about the good old days that oftentimes weren't really as good as we remember them. That just seems that way because we only reminisce about the fun and happy times, not about the stressful and difficult times. Everyone likes to reminisce about their youth, be nostalgic. Every generation did that. Your grandparents did, your parents did, and about 20 years from now, you'll be doing it too. However, with my generation, it's more than just nostalgia. Like, as I have said before, multiple studies have shown that social media can be bad for your mental health, particularly for young people. It shows that ever since social media became popular in the late 2000s and early 2010s, the number of adolescents and young adults struggling with anxiety and depression is higher than ever before. And it's been pretty much the same ever since. Some people tried attributing it to politics or the pandemic, but these high rates of adolescents with anxiety and depression um, came right with the beginning of social media, and it didn't start after the pandemic or anything like that. Now, obviously, anxiety and depression didn't start with social media. I had anxiety and depression even before social media, that is. But social media made it worse. And since I've been off social media, I've been a lot happier. Quitting it was one of the best, not one of the best thing I ever did for my mental health, recently anyway. And there hasn't been one day since I quit Facebook that I have said, gee, I wonder what someone who I haven't seen in 25 years had for lunch today, or oh, if there were only some way to see the vacation photos from someone who hasn't been part of my life since high school and never will be a part of my life again. And and I've never said, you know what would make me a really a better and happier person? Knowing what song the person who sat next to me in geometry class back in 1994, what song she has stuck in her head today. So I'm really not missing out on much. And I still manage to keep in touch with my friends. Now, I'm not going to lie, there have been a few times when I miss social media, like, for instance, every year on my birthday, when I don't get any notifications from friends like I did all those years that I was on Facebook. Um, Last year, on my birthday, I was so sad I almost considered going back on Facebook, but then I realized, not a good idea. And a couple weeks ago, when we had the eclipse of the sun, I was thinking back to the eclipse that we had back in 2017. I remembered that day being on social media all day long and looking at people's pictures of the eclipse and people talking about it and people saying things like, oh, I'm listening to the song about the sun or whatever. And in 2024, I kind of missed that. I missed, you know, all day long waiting for the eclipse to happen and reading all people's thoughts about it. So yeah, that was the time that I missed it. But for the most part, I don't miss it, and I'm glad I quit it. Now, as I said before, you may not feel that you need to quit social media entirely. Um, you might find that you are able to use it in moderation without it becoming an addiction. Many people can, just like many people can have an alcoholic beverage every once in a while without becoming an alcoholic. However, for me, I concluded that healthy social media use ultimately meant no social media use at all. Well, okay, minimal social media. Now, you, on the other hand, might not need to go to that extreme. So, for those of you who choose to remain on social media, Carolyn is going to present our next workshop on healthy social media use.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carolyn Fopiano, and I am going to take over to present Top 10 Hacks for Healthy Social Media Use. So just a quick thank you for sticking around this long. And before I go on, here's a bit about me. I use she, her pronouns. I am a special education major in my 5th year here at Bridgewater State University, and I have been using social media since I was 12. Unless you're my mom watching this video, in which case I've been using social media since I was 14. Through the years, I've made a lot of mistakes online, and have even developed some habits that were quite unhealthy and gotten into some spaces that I should not have been in at the age I was. However, I've also been able to find people with like-minded interests, learn that I was not the only one in the world who felt the way I did, and socialize in ways that I was unable to do within my own school and home life. Through trial and error and my own experience, I have created 10 tips on how to have a healthier relationship with social media, as shown in these 3 categories. I will primarily be focusing on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, as those are the social media websites I most commonly use. However, these tips can be applied throughout all social media platforms. Alright, so let's get right into it. The first few tips are going to be about posting on social media. Now, when you see something epic, it is a perfectly natural response to want to capture it forever. And if you're at a place where taking pictures is allowed, it is extremely important to remember that you're not the only person that wants to enjoy it. Therefore, if you do want to record something, make sure you keep in mind where you are and who is around you. Say, for example, you're at a concert. Make sure that your phone isn't blocking the view of the person behind you, as seen in this photo. Or if you're somewhere in nature, make sure that when you do stop to take a picture, you're not blocking the path for anyone else, and you're not accidentally stepping in any flowers or plants. That way, everyone can enjoy the experience. Now that you've gotten the perfect picture, you have to make sure to check that everyone who is in the picture is okay with being online. Now, again, you might have the perfect picture from a night out of you and all your friends, but it's not a guarantee that every single one of your friends wants to be online. And if you don't know, it's okay to ask. If someone doesn't want to be online, then they would far prefer you ask them instead of just posting without asking. And there are many reasons someone might not want to be online, some for privacy reasons or personal reasons. So, again, if you're not sure that someone's okay with being online, ask them. However, if they say no, make sure to respect that. And if you're in a situation where you can't ask if the person's alright with being online, then don't post the picture. Now, as you can see, this picture right here is of my younger brother at Fan Expo Boston, which is the Boston version of Comic-Con. Now, he was pretty little and wanted to get autographs from the different characters that were present. However, without anyone's permission or knowledge, this photo was taken by a member of staff and posted to the official Instagram of the convention. Now, had someone asked, I probably would have said yes to this picture being taken or posted, as it is pretty cute and you can't really see his face. However, it was quite creepy to know that my younger brother's face was being shown to thousands of strangers online without anyone's knowledge or consent. So again, make sure if you have someone in a picture that you want to post, you have to get their permission before you post it. Now that you've gotten permission from everyone in the picture, make sure to take a second before you post it and think to yourself, am I okay with everyone seeing this post? You would be surprised the amount of people who can see a post and who those people might be, even if your account is on private. You can have a tech-savvy cousin who happens to see your picture and then send it to your grandma, or an old teacher who happens to recognize you in a group picture posted by a friend. Therefore, before you post something, make sure you should ask yourself the following questions. Are you alright with people you see daily seeing your post? What about family you see often, or family you rarely see? Are you alright with kids seeing your post? Because even if they shouldn't be, kids are on all spaces on the internet, and they might see your picture. Are you okay with your friends seeing your picture, or your boss, or maybe an acquaintance or a coworker? And are you okay with total strangers seeing your post? If the answer is yes to all those questions, then you can continue on to posting. Alright, last up for these posting tips, once you have the perfect image, you've determined that everyone's okay, that everyone in the picture is okay with being online, and that you're alright with everyone seeing your post, you have the option of tagging anyone who has an account or tagging the location. However, if you tag someone in your post, they're not guaranteed to see the post. All that's guaranteed is to get a notification that someone tagged them. Now, it's more likely they're going to see the post if, say, they're just your buddy, but if someone has 1 million followers, then they're likely not going to see your post. An example of this is one time my younger brother decided he wanted to make Taylor Swift a birthday card, and he desperately wanted her to be able to see it, but because he didn't have her address, because that'd be weird if he did, he insisted that I post it on my Instagram and tag her in it. And I did, but, she didn't see it, because it's Taylor Swift and I am but a student. And my brother, he was devastated, as he'd worked on the cards for hours. So, again, it's alright to tag someone in your post, but it's still not a guarantee that they're gonna see it. Now, on some social media platforms, you can also tag the location of your post, and this may seem like a good idea, but if you tag your post, that means someone can click on that tagged location and find an address to that location. Therefore, it's not the safest thing to tag posts of yourself at school or at work, because that way you're telling the entire internet exactly where you were when you happened to be the picture. So it's much safer to save tagging for vacations or special events, or to skip tagging your location whatsoever. This post may be awesome, but nothing is worth jeopardizing your safety over. Now, on to some tips that can help with browsing social media. Something big to keep in mind is that someone's social media profile is not their full story. Someone may have a video of themselves doing a TikTok dance in a nice, clean bedroom, but in reality, that might have been the only section of their room that they've cleaned. Now, say if you look here at Taylor Swift's Instagram, you'll see promotions for her album, things for her upcoming movie, and posts of her accomplishments. And if you just were to see her Instagram, you wouldn't get the full story of what's going on in her life, and that's okay. Everybody has good and bad parts of their life, things they want to share, and things they want to keep private, even if they have millions of followers. So while you may see perfection on social media, Don't feel bad if your own life's not perfect, and make sure to respect someone's decision to post or not post certain elements of their life. Now, just because someone is an influencer or they're famous doesn't mean they're obligated to share every single thing that's going on in their lives. Now, when it comes to comments on social media, people can be quite nasty. It's easy to say mean things online because chances are no one will know that you personally said it. You don't have to look at the reaction on someone's face when they hear the mean comment, and oftentimes you don't have to deal with the social backlash of saying something mean. However, just because you can say something mean in the comments doesn't mean you should. Even if you don't physically see that you're hurting someone, you still are hurting someone with mean comments. Therefore, you should never comment something that you would never say to someone in real life. A good hack for this is that when you do write a comment, read it out loud first before you post it. If it makes you feel weird or bad to read it out loud, then it'll probably make the person who posted the original post feel weird or bad to read it. So if you wouldn't say it in person, don't comment it. Lastly, when it comes to browsing social media, if you see something that's too good to be true, probably is. Just because you see something online doesn't mean it's automatically true. Well, this phrase is often used for things like conspiracy theories or advertisements. It also applies to influencers or people who use social media for their jobs. In an attempt to make the best posts, people will spend lots of time and money on professional photographers and photo editing to make their posts look perfect. However, that doesn't mean that their posts are better than others or everyone should make their posts look like theirs. Sometimes people will make personal videos that aren't real just to make money. On sites like YouTube, if a video gets a ton of views, then the YouTuber will get paid per view. This creates an environment where people will do whatever it takes to get views, even if that means creating a fake video. A famous example of this is called 5 Minute Crafts. Now, if you don't know, 5 Minute Crafts is a channel that posts hack videos, but a lot of the times,
So check out this
if you
gardening
try
hack.
their hacks,
They take the seeds from a dragon
don't work.
fruit and put it
Sometimes
inside
the
a
hacks
cactus.
are in fact dangerous,
And then
and
they
if
add
you were to try them,
toothpicks
you
to
get
join it back
seriously
together.
hurt.
And then
And people will see this and be like, no, if you do this, it's not
What-
going to work. So they'll get upset.
What
So they
is
hit
there
the
to
dislike
say?
button or
they're
write a nasty
stooping
comment.
to all
However,
new lows. Like no one is going to
they're
believe
engaging with the
that.
video, if that makes
And
it
then I
even
thought
more
about it, and I
popular.
thought,
So
I wonder if
believe
they're
me,
doing
watch
this
clip
deliberately
from
to
How
drive
Cook That,
engagement.
a YouTube channel
Because
run
when
by a
people
food
are
scientist
frustrated by
who
something
put
and they see something that's
tons of
wrong,
research
often
into
they
5 Minute
want to
Crafts
call
and
that
similar
out.
channels.
So then they might write in the comments, this is fake, and we can see those comments are generated under that video. But you need to understand engaging with videos, even if it's in a bad way, even if it's hitting the dislike button, that actually helps the video do better. The higher the engagement, the better it is. If I show you some examples, one of the obvious ones is YouTube Rewind from 2018. It had 3 million likes and 19 million dislikes. That's an 86% dislike ratio. 86% of viewers did not like this video, and it's still got 218 million views. And you can go, oh, well, that's YouTube's own video, so of course they're going to promote that. Let's just look at a YouTuber's video. If we look at this one from PewDiePie, can this video get 1 million dislikes?
Listen closely to this information.
Okay.
The likes, they don't do anything. It's a dead button. It's been a dead button all along.
He got a dislike ratio of 95%, but the video still got 24 million views. And you might be thinking, well, he is a big YouTuber and that's normal for him to get that many views. But if you look at the time when he uploaded that video, that wasn't normal for him. The video just before it got 5 million views, and the video straight after it got 5 million views. And if the ones around it are getting between 5 and 10 million views, not 24 million views. So what's the secret? Do we need heaps and heaps of dislikes? Is that the secret?
What about the dislikes?
Don't you see? That's the key. The more dislikes, the more power.
No, that's not actually the secret. The reason is that that video, of everyone who viewed it, 20% of people hit the like or dislike button, mainly the dislike button because that's what he asked. Whereas normally on his videos, 5% of people were clicking like or dislike. So the engagement rate was 4 times higher on that video, and YouTube likes engagement. But that just proves that they don't care if the engagement is dislike as long as you've engaged. So if you see a video that you don't like, don't click dislike, don't write a comment, just ignore it, walk away.
All right. So yeah, I would definitely recommend giving her a follow. She's done a ton of really good in-depth research on things like YouTube algorithm and fake videos and those sorts of things. So, just to reiterate, if you see something online and it's too good to be true, or something that makes you upset, the best thing to do is scroll away and not to engage with it, because the more you engage with it, the more the algorithm thinks it's good, and the more it'll show it to more people. Now, here are just some general reminders for social media use. Post it because you like it, not for likes. While I will admit it does feel nice to get a bunch of likes on something, or it feels icky when you put a ton of effort into something, only to get a few likes, the likes don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Even if you are a social media influencer with millions of follows, not all of your posts are going to get a million likes. So posting things that will specifically get likes will eventually lead to disappointment. Therefore, the healthiest thing to do is to post something because you like it. That way, it doesn't matter if it gets a lot of likes. And if it does get a lot of likes, it'll feel nice. It's a win-win. It's a win-win and healthier all around. Now, if you feel like you might be posting too much, or if you want a social media profile that's full of only high quality posts, then try posting on social media platforms once per day. That way, you can figure out what matters to you most and only post things that you care about. It'll also ensure that your posts are of high quality, because if you have to pick only one thing to post, you're going to pick the best. And if you're having difficulty only posting once a day, you can always save content to post later days. I like to say, if something's epic today, it'll still be epic tomorrow. Now again, it's not a requirement to post every single day, but just a suggestion. And I'd say an interesting case study of this is one of my favorite YouTubers, Sophia Nygaard. She's not a YouTuber that posts every day or every week or bi-weekly. She'll kind of post once in a blue moon, disappear back into the void, and then post again. But all of her videos are amazingly high quality, and it's definitely a very interesting experiment in quantity over quality. Now, before we finish up, here are a couple tips and tricks that I use for my own social media use. But if I gave them a whole slide, then we would be here for approximately 35,000 years, and you probably got other better stuff to do. So my first tip is to be creative. When I was in high school, my mom did not want me putting my face on social media for privacy reasons, but I still wanted to post selfies. So as a compromise, I put emojis over my face before I posted a picture. This way, my privacy was protected and I was still able to express my feelings through a post. Now, when deciding to post something, you can use the Marie Kondo method of does it bring you joy? If it's something that makes you happy, then the chances are you'll be happy seeing it on your profile. Now, if you make something, you can post it. If you make something, and whether it be a cake, a meal, art, or anything else, you make it, you post it. can feel nice to post something that you put a bunch of effort into. Now, these are just strategies that I use, but that doesn't mean they're the only ones out there. Find your own way to use social media in a healthy way. Now, as long as you're healthy and safe, there's no limits to what you can do. So find your own way. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I know this is not a short workshop, especially if you've been watching both workshops in a row. Here is a quick overview of all of the tips. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment them or reach out. And I hope you have a wonderful day.